Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala sayyidil mursaleen. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Subhanaka la fahma lana illa ma fahamtana innaka antal jawadul karim. Wa qul rabbi zidni ilma. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. ولهن مثل الذي عليهن بالمعروف وللرجال عليهن درجة والله عزيز حكيم صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So we're continuing the discussion and the dialogue regarding the rights of the women and the rights of men, and this is of course a dilemma in this age of what we call in the Arabic language ifrat and tafrit, extremism, either extremely not doing something or extremely overdoing something. This is basically what we have in the world when we're not following the moderation and the balance which the Quran teaches us. So first of all, let's look at what was the situation of women pre-Islam. Not only in Arabia, as a matter of fact, perhaps in Arabia, if you really look at it, analytically, perhaps the plight of the women was better off in Arabia than it was in other parts of the world. So there in Arabia, as we probably alluded to earlier, that of course the women were considered second-class citizens. They were considered perhaps citizens at all. They were perhaps considered, and this was a global phenomena, basically, possessions. And interestingly, still this remains, an indication of this remains in Western society. For example, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Years ago, back in the early 1970s, when I had to fill out a form for myself and my wife, the Social Security office or something like that. So I filled out my name, which is Hashim Ahmad, and my wife's name, which is Fulan, bin Fulana. So the woman who was concerned, so when she looked at that, she said, "This is your wife? Who is this?" That's my wife. "She doesn't have your name." So I said, "Yes, because she's not my property." We have an agreement, we have a contractual agreement, we have a relationship or agreement. She doesn't become my property. That's where and the woman was stunned. But actually we don't realize that this is actually an indication, of what the previous situation basically was. And things haven't really changed all that much, and we're going to look at that. So women, they basically didn't have rights. They were under the discretion of men. Men could do with them what they want. They didn't inherit. They couldn't have a speech. Men could do whatever they wanted with them, with their property. And as I said, perhaps in Arabia they had a little bit better plight. As we look at, Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, in Jahiliyyah, she was a businesswoman, very well-to-do, very highly respected, and she was working in her money. In fact, she used to hire men. Whereas in Europe and these places, they were much worse off, As a matter of fact, in Europe, they had to really, deliberate over the issue whether a woman is a human being or not. I mean, it's horrific. The history is just unbelievable. And that whole concept of the woman takes the name of the husband, that's indicative of that situation. So Islam came and gave everybody their rights. In every relationship, whether it's marital relationship, whether it's parent-child relationship, whether it's neighbors, whether it's people who work together, whether it's communities, whether it's nations, and whether those nations are at peace with you or at war with you, everybody has their rights. Even the enemies have their rights. If you want to break a truce or break a pact with an enemy, you have to first announce to them that we're going to break this truce because you're not following it or whatever. And then, so everyone has their rights. So, however, وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ الدَّرَجَةِ, as we mentioned yesterday, without hierarchy, what do we have? Anarchy. So now we have this thing called women's liberation. Women's liberation. Like women were not the women were liberated 1400 years ago by the Quran, who gave everyone their rights. Right? So what happened is that now, because people are not following the guidance of the creator of the universe and following the guidance of their own intelligence, which is quite naqis, which is quite deficient, particularly in such issues. We don't understand the true nature of ourselves. The one who created us, he definitely does, and he's given us instructions therein. So we have this thing called women's liberation. And in other words, take them out of the care and the oversight of men and, make them compete with men. I mean, this is really amazing that human beings don't have enough wherewithal and intelligence to realize that if you look at a man, look at a woman, they are absolutely different. Okay, if we can be equal, then tell the man, have a baby. It's impossible, Or tell the woman, produce a baby. It's impossible. Not only physically there's differences, the emotional differences, because they have different roles in society. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them and engineered them as such. So now what we want to do is, the communists, for example, they have this concept that we need to make everybody equal economically. Okay? So the example of that is like, we look at the hand, right? This is an unequal situation. Look at, how is this fellow, all the way up here, and this poor fellow is down here. So we need to make everybody equal. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to just take a saw and we're going to cut right across here, and we're going to make everybody equal. Now what did you do? You totally destroyed the function of the entire hand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't create everybody equal. Everybody created everyone significant. Right? For example, if we say we have the president, we have the vice president. We say, what is this? Why doesn't the vice president have the same say as the president? Nobody would say that. Nobody would even offer this, this question. Because obviously if you don't have a hierarchy where someone has the final say, you're going to have anarchy. You're going to have chaos. Similarly, in a family unit, if a family unit you don't have, what the Nabi alayhi salam says, if you have 3 people in a jamaat, make one amir. If you don't make one amir, then what happens? Shaitan becomes the amir. So in a family, if you don't have one amir, what happens? Shaitan becomes the amir. Husband says, wife says, child says, he says. There's a hierarchy, you see. Now, that doesn't mean that men are dictators over women. Men are responsible and accountable. And this takes us to another very basic and very important, concept. Rather than, and this is the 20th and 21st century and a continual dilemma for human beings, is that we always are looking for our rights to be fulfilled. My right, I have my right. What about his right, her right, their right, his? So the philosophy of Quran is, if I'm concerned with everybody else's rights, and I'm very moderate and forgiving with my own rights, then what happens? If I'm fulfilling the woman's rights, then her rights are already fulfilled, right? I'm feeling my responsibility, and what happens? Her rights are fulfilled. She's looking to fulfill the responsibilities of the husband. So what happens? She's fulfilling her duty, and the rights of the man is fulfilled. You have a beautiful and congenial and loving and affectionate and understanding society. When we have a society where everybody's my right, my right, my right, everybody's demanding their rights, then what happens? Nobody's concerned with fulfilling other people's rights. I want to fulfill my rights. And then we're going to have chaos, we're going to have difficulties, we're going to have disputes, we're going to end up with wars, in fact. It's all about greed, So similarly, with the men and women. So women's liberation, trying to liberate the women from what? Liberate them from responsibility, liberate them from being women, as a matter of fact. So what we don't have women's liberation, we have women's humiliation and degradation. Is this, liberating the women, that now women can also be garbage collectors, they can be police officers? You're a woman. You are protected. You are honored. You are, we're getting thrown out into the public like a piece of machinery. What respect? What? Liberation is this? This is degradation and humiliation. You see. So when we look at Islam, Islam gives everyone their rights and gives them their responsibilities and accountabilities. If we follow those orders, we have beautiful harmony within society. And we have, just as the hand, it's not equal. This is a taller finger. It needs to be like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives some people more wealth, some less wealth. He spends on him. He doesn't want from him. He has from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's love and affection. Zakat is instituted. So this is all under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom. And obviously this is a long, this is a long subject. And so we'll continue a little bit more on this tomorrow, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. وَلِلَّهِ بِهِ تَوْفِيقٍ. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك.